Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
College football is just a few days away. We get you ready for the start of the 2025 season. Also, the Cubs prove that the gods do, in fact, bleed after taking 3 straight off the Brewers. And the Colts are clueless for starting Daniel Jones over Anthony Richardson.
I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
This weekend, college football returns, sort of. Iowa State, Kansas State in Dublin for week 0 and plenty of other big storylines to come in the 2025 college football season. To help us sort through all of that, Spencer McLaughlin from Locked On College Football joins me now. And Spencer, I understand we got 2 ranked opponents in Ireland playing. We'll get to them in a second, though. As you look at the landscape of this college football season, what is the biggest storyline you're keeping your eye on as we head toward the big games?
Will the SEC get back to the national championship game? It's not as if they don't look like they're teams that are capable. Of course, you always have to count on Georgia with Kirby Smart. I think Alabama with Kalen DeBoer is actually a little underrated because the first season was such a massive disappointment with the way they lost to Vanderbilt and Oklahoma. And, the SEC being left out of the title game 2 years in a row, Peter, has not happened in over 2 decades. You have to go back to the early-ish days of the BCS to the last time there was a crossover of, I think, USC and Oklahoma and somebody else, maybe Florida State, in the fold to where they got left out. I don't find that to be coincidental when we are now well entrenched into the world of NIL and the portal. Those, you hear the generic platitudes all the time. They've changed college football. Yes, they have. This is not just something that people say. Go talk to coaches, mostly coaches, but go talk to players, go talk to anybody if you don't follow college sports that closely, and they'll tell you, yeah, this is way different. And so to have that huge level of change introduced to the roster construction, which I think the SEC's obviously always had great coaches like Nick Saban, but to introduce those changes and then all of a sudden they don't make the playoff 2 years or the championship game 2 years in a row. They weren't even in they were in the semifinal, obviously, the year before. No, they were last year as well because Texas got there. The team they stole from the Big 12.
Yes.
So like that. That's the number one thing I look at is if the SEC, which is already, I think, having an identity crisis, and people in the media space all over the country and on various platforms are losing their minds and are really worried and are trying to defend, no, it's still the SEC. No, it's still the greatest. If they are left out of the title game for a 3rd year in a row, forget not winning it. If they're not even in it for a 3rd straight year, we're going to be having some serious conversations come January.
Well, and I've already seen some low-stakes conspiracy theories like this is why they want to expand the playoff, give more SEC teams a chance to make the dance and do all of that stuff. I want to ask you about that because we've already expanded the playoff. It has only gotten bigger over the last handful of years, and now we see this. I know, Spencer, but it seems like we're headed that way. Are you going to be looking at this year's regular season any differently, knowing we may never get a regular season like this for a long time, or if they make these changes?
I already looked at it last year, and I will see it again this year because we have a 12-team playoff. Last year, Michigan pulled one of the most shocking upsets in the sport in recent memory. They were a 22.5-point dog on the road with no passing game against a team that we all knew was good enough to win the national championship, and of course they did. My issue with expanding the playoff is that loss didn't actually matter for Ohio State. It mattered to their fans. It mattered for their coaching staff. It mattered to the players. I'm not denying that I'm not saying the rivalry is dead or denying its importance. What I am saying is that the national implications of that game were completely removed. You weren't seeded as high, so you get a home playoff game and not as long of a layoff compared to everybody else. Like that's not the sort of stakes that we used to have in the sport. The kick six is probably the most famous college football play. It's one of the three to five most famous of all time. You've got the play at Stanford, Doug Flutie's Hail Mary, Vince Young to the corner of the end zone. Okay, the kick six is up there. Do you realize that the kick six would not have the value in all of our heads and just the memorable factor that it does today if we had a 12-team playoff then? That was the last year of the BCS. That kept Alabama from going to the national championship game. They were ranked number 1. If you'd had a 4, maybe, but probably certainly in a 12-team playoff, the kick six never happens. It happens, but it doesn't mean as much. It doesn't mean nearly as much because Bama's still getting in the playoff. They might go win the national championship anyway. That's why it stinks. And the fact that they're going to expand it again is greedy, dumb, short-sighted, and I hate it, but this is the sport that we've got.
You can stay up to date all year on college football by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On College Football on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. You're Locked On Sports Today. Coming up, the Cubs have taken 3 straight over the Brewers. Before we get to that, John Wall has decided to hang it up. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. Perhaps you believe the Green Bay Packers are going to win the Super Bowl, or maybe you have some division winner dark horses you'd like to parlay. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bet now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. Former Washington Wizards star John Wall has announced he is retiring from basketball.
John Wall was a guy that got people into basketball in this town. He embraced the way this city embraced him. I think that meant a lot to him. There's a reason why his time in D.C. that he got from this fan base, from people around the NBA that admired what he was doing for the Washington, D.C. area. You know, the volunteer work he's done within the community, the relationships he built in this area. Just super, super powerful in terms of bringing people together.
Over on the diamond, the Phillies absolutely demolished the Mariners to complete the sweep.
Philadelphia Phillies finish off the record-setting sweep of the Seattle Mariners with an 11-2 blowout victory Wednesday afternoon in South Philadelphia. First up, let's talk about the pitching. Jesus Luzardo comes up with 12 strikeouts. Christopher Sanchez had 12 strikeouts, and Ranger Suarez had 10. That's 34 strikeouts in this series, the most the Phillies have ever had in a 3-game set by those 3 pitchers. Pretty impressive. Then when you talk about the offense, you talk about 48 hits in total in this series, including 20 in Game 3. That saw Trey Turner come up with 5 hits. He's raised his batting average 20 points over the last week. And Schwarber also, by the way, 45 home runs now as he capped off the Phillies offense in this one with a 2-run home run in the bottom of the 8th inning. Phillies get the sweep, and now they take on the Nationals starting Friday for a weekend series in South Philly.
The Yankees got out of Tampa with a win over the Rays in extras.
Yankees get the victory, a 5-0 road trip in their home, but not their home, but the Rays' home. You get the whole point. I'm Brian McKeon from Locked On Yankees. This was an unbelievable victory, and after Cam Schlittler took a perfect game into the 7th inning, you kind of thought this one's pretty much over, right? The bullpen's going to close it out. The Yankees have a 3-run lead. Not so fast. Tampa Bay comes back. You thought it was a walk-off home run potentially off of the bat, and Bednar almost gave it up, but it hit the top of the wall. Yankees get saved. They somehow win a game in extra innings on the road, which is something they never do, but they get out of it. Still a terrible decision by Boone to bring in Devin Williams. We'll discuss it on Locked On Yankees. Just because they won doesn't mean it's the right decision. We'll get to all of it. What an unbelievable road trip for the Yankees. 5-0 at the top position of the wild card.
And Andy Reid's office was under fire. According to new reports, one round pierced his window last May while the 67-year-old coach was working late, lodged in a wall just 15 feet from his desk. Thankfully, Reid was unharmed, and the Chiefs have since replaced the glass with bulletproof protection. Police say the incident wasn't targeted at Reed or the team, but 3 shots in total struck the facility that night. No arrests have been made, and for now, Reed will keep game planning behind reinforced windows. It wasn't that long ago that the Brewers were looking up at the Cubs in the standings, and it also wasn't that long ago that the Cubs were looking and craning their necks, looking up at the Milwaukee Brewers. But now, after taking 3 straight off the crew, including sweeping a doubleheader, the Cubs now just 6 games back in the NL Central. Matt Cuzzy from Locked On Cubs joins me now. And Matt, I talked to your co-host a couple weeks ago, and I said, at what point do you get worried about the Milwaukee Brewers? That was a harbinger of things to come, considering what followed there. Did anything fundamental change in the last couple of days, or is this just baseball?
I think it's mostly just baseball, Peter. But for the Cubs to win 3 in a row now and clinch the season series against their rival, it's starting to shift their script, at least of the second half. Because since the All-Star break, the Cubs, until the last 3 games, hadn't won 3 games in a row. And so while nothing's ever been in jeopardy or anything like that, they've really struggled to stack wins, and they have just been an average team for about a month. Now they're 14-15 since July 20th, but going into the week, it was only 11-15. So they are starting to turn the tenor around themselves, and it's very encouraging amidst the Brewers clearly being the best team in baseball.
Well, and when anytime you beat 3 games in a row, you beat the best team in baseball, that's going to be something that you can drive forward with. But also, if the Cubs want to go anywhere in the postseason, at some point they're probably going to have to play and beat the Brewers. So to have a stretch like this in your back pocket, I mean, that has to be a buoying force in this clubhouse.
It is, and there's some foreshadowing hopefully happening, because if the Cubs make the wild card series, they get past the Padres or the Mets or the Reds, they will have to play the Brewers in a 5-game series. Well, now you've just proven to yourself, if that matters at all, that you could win 3 of 5. They've won 3 of 4 with 1 game left in this rare 5-game series because of the rain out a couple months ago. So absolutely, it does wonders. And for a rookie like Matt Shaw tonight to absolutely flip the momentum of this game, but maybe the entire month, it's really cool to see.
Well, and these are also games. No, they're not blowout games. The Cubs kind of beating the Brewers the way that the Brewers have beaten everybody else, and that is scrapping and clawing and winning these close games in clutch moments. Maybe giving up a little bit of a lead. They're not winning, with walk-offs. The Brewers have won a ridiculous amount, 8th, 9th inning. But to be able to be in these close, it's not a game where, okay, the Brewers just no-showed one day, you win 8-0. In some ways, those wins are less telling than some of these closer, more pressure-packed meetings. 3 close wins
Now this week, a blowout loss on Monday. And I think that's true. For the offense to struggle as much as they have, for the starting pitching to step up this week, for the bullpen to hold serve this week, and to score just enough, I think it is important to have that club in your bag and say, okay, not only are we beating our rival and now helping ourselves in the postseason picture, but we're doing it like they've done it now, 7+ years. And we saw that earlier in the season by the Cubs. That's why you allowed yourself to dream, because they were doing station to station and there was players emerging you didn't think, and they were hitting the ball out of the ballpark. So when it has all come together this year for the Cubs, it really has looked like a team that could make a deep run. And despite the last month of poor play, I do think the work they're putting in this week has shifted some of that, and that is part of the sport.
Stay up to date all year on the Chicago Cubs by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Cubs on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, the Colts made the wrong decision at quarterback. Losing to Daniel Jones in a quarterback battle is a bad look for anybody. However, being Daniel Jones and starting for the Colts might be even worse. Locked On NFL host Tyler Rowland explains why Indianapolis made the wrong decision picking Jones over Anthony Richardson.
It's kind of on him. Luke, as Jake said in there, it looked like to him Anthony Richardson had the better camp. And a lot of Colts fans are absolutely angry with this decision because it has seemed with the preseason and the joint practices and the camp reports and the stuff that we've seen, it seems like Richardson won. And you would think if it's even equal, they would go with Richardson because there's still some long-term potential there. So that means when Jake says it's on him, I think that we can ascertain that the things we can't see, Daniel Jones is blowing Anthony Richardson out of the water. The leadership behind the scenes, the professionalism, the being prepared, the being ready for practice, knowing the script. I may be going out on a limb here, Luke, but this is something that I can't help. I think you look at it and what we've seen from Anthony Richardson so far, I don't think that he takes the preparation very serious. I don't think he's mature enough about the quarterback position, not just the on-field, throw it, run it, physical stuff, the mental aspect of playing the game and playing from the professional quarterback position. I don't think that Anthony Richardson is working hard enough behind the scenes.
He's also still, I mean, it's a bit of a cliche at this point in his career because this is his third year, but like he is younger than like several people that like quarterbacks that got drafted
crazy
this year.
Yeah.
So that's not wholly unsurprising, but Jake's been on this for a while. Jake in particular has been talking about this since summer, since offseason, since Daniel Jones even got there. He went, they might go with him. And people didn't like to hear that. But I think that there has been an unrest with Anthony Richardson and the Colts.
Here's the problem. We don't see Anthony Richardson every day. We don't see him in the meeting rooms. We don't see him in the gym. We don't see him in the weight room. Shane Steichen does. This Colts organization does. And the front office invested a lot in Anthony Richardson. They are invested in his success. But they also know that if everyone can see one player is better than the other, regardless of draft stock, what are you supposed to do? I mean, this is a guy who got benched last year. There were questions about his commitment. Took himself out of a game, which is just not a thing a quarterback ever does because he was tired. If the Colts are making this decision, it is a signal. It is telling us a lot about the way they feel about Anthony Richardson, a supremely physically gifted quarterback. But also, the other players know. They know what this looks like. They know what the operation of the offense looks like with Daniel Jones versus Anthony Richardson. And those guys, this is the old, I worked too hard for this. Those players, Quentin Nelson and Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman, those players work too hard to have their livelihood decided by a player who is not as good or who is playing so he can get reps to better the long-term future of the team rather than try and win games. That's a hard sell in the locker room. Oh, this is for the greater good long-term. Who are we talking about? The average NFL career is less than 5 years. Long-term, there is no long-term in the NFL. The players don't care. That's how these kinds of decisions get made. And finally, Giannis Antetokounmpo is, just easing back into basketball. He blew the doors off Greece's Acropolis tournament in a win over Latvia, dropping 25 points on 9 of 12 shooting with 10 rebounds, 2 steals, and 2 blocks in 15 minutes. He had 20 and 8 by halftime, looking every bit the MVP version of himself before Latvia even had a chance to settle in. And remember, this was his very first tune-up game ahead of Eurobasket 2025 after weeks of back and forth over insurance just to get him on the floor. Turns out the only thing that could slow him down was paperwork. I get it. Me too, bro. If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're a new subscriber to Locked On Sports Today, we're here for you with the biggest stories in sports every day. Coming up, how are the Packers feeling about themselves as we get ready to close out the preseason? So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.